Welcome to Christ in Me with Addie podcast. I'm your host, Addie Overla, and I am so glad that you're here. Whether you're new to Jesus or you've been walking with Jesus for a while or you're not sure about this whole faith in Jesus and life thing, I'm so glad that you're here. Because here on this podcast, we have real conversations about really big questions about faith and life from the lens and perspective of the Bible. And if you're not sure what you believe, you don't have to believe to be a part of what we're doing here on Christ in Me with Addie podcast. This is a safe space to join in these conversations, figure out where God might be leading you, and figure out what kind of relationship you have with Him. I can't wait to get into it with you guys, but be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Addie Overla and join the Christ in Me with Addie broadcast channel to stay up to date on all things with the podcast. Now let's get into today's topic. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Christ in Me with Addie. I'm really excited about this topic. It's actually one that I've had kind of pocketed for a while because I think whether we realize it or not, all of us worship something or someone in this life. And a lot of times we're just going through our life, going through the motions, but our actions actually speak the loudest in what or who we are worshiping. And so I wanted to talk about worship today because worship is one of those weird church words where you're like, what is it exactly? How does God want to be worshiped? And how might I be worshiping something or someone other than Him in my life today? Or maybe you're someone who you're like brand new to the faith, still figuring out the faith, and you just don't understand, there's a weirdness to worship. There's a mystery to worship that you're still navigating. So today I just wanted to have a conversation with a close, dear friend of mine about this. And this is Tenesha, everybody. I'm so excited that she's here today. Tenesha, why don't you just take a second to tell everybody who you are, Amazing. Just a little bit about yourself.
Amazing. Like Addie said, I am Tenesha. And first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to just sit and talk about worship with you. You said who am I?
Yes.
Just a girl. I'm married to my husband, Alex. We've been married for almost 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, girl, a long time.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yes, because I got married straight out of high school.
Wow, that's kind of beautiful though.
Yeah, it's great. The Lord has been faithful. It hasn't been easy, but the Lord has been so good and gracious and kind to us.
That's amazing.
And we have 2 kids. Annabella, she's 11. Xander, he's 8. And they're so fun.
I always see all your little content you record with them. It's so cute.
They're so fun. I just love it.
I saw the video that I forget what you say, but everybody goes around and they cheer, and then when you get to the last person, what did they say again?
Yeah, it's just give me my money.
Yeah. Show me the money or something. And then when your son went, none of you cheered, and his little heart.
I'm not gonna lie, that I almost took the video down because I was it was so sad to watch his little face, and I don't understand. I know I did that, but I don't get how people do that.
Yeah, it's actually so funny though. Don't take it down.
I won't. But I was oh my gosh, so I had to buy him extra candy and ice cream.
That's right. He took one for the team.
Yeah, exactly. He did. He did. It was very sad. So I get to be just a mom and a wife. That's the baseline. And then,
I actually looked up your LinkedIn before you came here because I was like, what is she doing?
Girl, that is hilarious. I just updated it the other day.
You said you're worship director, songwriter, cultivator of community, and people's champion. I love that.
This is kind of awkward. I'm not kidding. I just updated that.
That's so good.
Because I felt like I'm not on LinkedIn, but people really talk about LinkedIn all the time, and I was like, I kind of want to, get with it. That's
You're
hilarious.
I want to network.
Yeah, I was like, what is this about? It feels so grown up to do.
It does. So tell us a little bit about what you do, though, where you work and what kind of your role is in that.
Yeah, I get to work at Rock City Church. It's a church in Columbus, Ohio. I'm one of our worship directors for our Whitehall campus, east side of Columbus, if you don't know where that is. And so I get to lead people in worship every Sunday, but I also just get to build the Whitehall team. And with that, I also get to just write songs with some of the best people about Jesus. And so,
Yeah, they have some bangers, let me tell you.
Very nice.
No Boundaries, still one of my favorites. No Boundaries.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, I don't know of them by name because I'm terrible, but
That's
they
all right.
pop up on my like Christian workout playlist
Okay.
all the time. Like you guys are in that thread, which
I
is
love
so
that.
cool. Rock City Worship. What's the song that you just, like one of the newer songs that you are leading that just came out?
Is it just me or is it with like Nathan?
I think it's just you.
Is it Kept Me? It's kind of like...
Go ahead, give us a little sample.
No.
Guys, she really does have such a good voice though. It's
very
insane.
nice. Yeah, it might be Kept Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have to check it out, Rock City Worship. She's featured on so many songs along with so many other talented people on your staff, but you're also like amazing songwriter, music director. So I just thought you're the perfect person to talk to today about worship. And so I want to hear really quick though, just a little bit about how you actually came to the faith. Like when did you start believing?
Amazing.
When did you accept Jesus?
So grew up, my dad has like always been a pastor. Pretty much, I think like my whole life, like maybe a couple years not, but I feel like my whole life. And so I have always known about Jesus.
Yeah.
I have always like seen people in relationship with Jesus. But I don't think I like knew Jesus for myself until like my 20s, to be honest. And it wasn't like anything my parents did or didn't do. It was just like, this is just what we do. Like, but I think I always have to brag on my parents because like my parents were in the church and they were pastors, but like they had integrity. And so the way that they presented themselves in the church is the way that they acted at home. Like every morning I saw my parents pray together. Every morning my mom's like on her face in the basement praying. And so that was just beautiful to grow up with. And so I think like more than like the going to church and every day, like, you know, like I think just seeing their real relationship with Jesus. And so early 20s is when I actually like felt like I knew Jesus for myself. I didn't get baptized. This is just funny to me, but my older siblings, I'm one of 6. Oh my gosh. Yeah, girl. It's a whole soccer team. Is that 6 people?
Or volleyball.
Yeah. You know, a whole team. But I'm one of 6 in my 3 older siblings. They all got baptized like when they were teenagers. And I just remember I was just like, so I did it.
I already showered. I'm good.
I'm good. And I didn't even get baptized until I was like, I think like 23.
Oh man.
And so, but anyways, so.
Well, you just know when you know. Like, I love that. Your parents had this authentic faith, but you also, I'm sure, wanted to be authentic for you. Like,
exactly.
You know when the Lord is calling you to like, be baptized.
Absolutely.
So, that's amazing. Well, again, I just really thought you were the perfect person to invite in to talk about worship. And I kind of wanted to ask you, like, just really general as we dig into this topic. Yeah. And I know this is a huge question, but like, what is worship to you as a literal like worship director? What is worship to you?
Yeah, big question for sure. To me, because I feel like this subject is also like everyone has their own definition.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think for me, worship is putting God in his rightful place as the creator. And I think like putting me in my rightful place, like as the creation. Yeah. And I think when doing that, then I can exalt him for who he really is. Yeah. So yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And actually that really made me think like the verse that this podcast is founded on is John 3:30. Yeah. Which is he must become greater and greater and I less and less. And really that's the heart of worship too, is like accepting. I love what I can't even just say how you said it. It was so good, but putting God like in his rightful place as creator, I'm creation. I think it starts with this like act of humility. Yeah. But for someone who's like brand new, maybe, or someone who's even in their faith but doesn't understand like worship. Yeah. How do you think that we worship God? What is the way that we worship God? The act. The actual actionable step. If you're looking at worship as a verb, what is it pointing to?
I think it is like the word I keep thinking of, and I just said it, but like it's like exaltation. Like it's just exalting God.
I love that. Just exalting, praising, and we're going to get into it later, but we actually have for you guys prepared like the 7 Hebrew words for worship in scripture, and the word like exalt, exclaim is in so many of these definitions. But I guess what I'm kind of trying to dig at is when I first came to the faith, I thought that worship was just singing a song. Right. I thought that was the only way to worship. Right. I thought that's how you worship. Like, I didn't understand how like doing the dishes to serve my family could also be worship.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying is like, in what ways have you expressed worship, like as a wife, as a friend, you know, to show the goodness of God to like those around you?
Yeah.
How those things can be an act of worship.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, doing the dishes thing, I think the thing that like people get confused with is that they think worship is like solely singing.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that the reason we think that is because like singing has no demand on your life, but worship does.
Yeah.
Like worship requires something. And so I think like when I think of worship, sacrifice, offering, like you said, like, I don't want to wash these dishes right now, but Lord, change my heart. Like in it, what is it? There's a verse that says like, everything you do unto the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
Like that is worship. Like,
is it the one like, so whether you eat, whatever you drink, to all for the glory of God? Yeah, I think that's 1 Corinthians 10:31.
Probably so, girl. You got it.
And if I'm wrong, it's 1 Corinthians 10:13.
She said either one. It's one of them.
13 or 31. Look it up later. I'm pretty confident.
I love it. We love a confident queen. So yeah, I think that I think it's sacrifice. I think it's offering. The very first time, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. The very first time worship is mentioned is in Genesis 22, and it's with Abraham, when Abraham is taking Isaac to be sacrificed. Yeah. And I think in like verse 5 or something, he says like, me and Isaac are going to go over there to worship. Like he was about to sacrifice his son, and he says like, we're going to go worship. Yeah. And so I think like offering and sacrificing, like that's our worship. And I think if it doesn't cost you anything, like it's not worship.
Yeah, it's not a hefty sacrifice.
No.
I love the song Christ Be Magnified. And if again, you want to sing it first?
No.
Christ Be Magnified. I think it's by Cody Carnes. I could be wrong.
I think you're right.
But every time I sing that song, I get choked up at the line that says, Christ be magnified from the altar of my life. Yeah. Like I literally can't sing that line without being like, you know, it hits so different, but that's so true. Like our lives, we live as a living sacrifice. Yeah. Our life is an altar to the only one who's worthy to sacrifice to. Right. And so I want to talk about kind of songwriting now, because that's a huge part of your life and everything that you do involved in music and worship. And I want to ask, how do you remove yourself? Because it can be really hard when there's a platform and a microphone in your hand. How do you remove yourself to really allow God to be exalted through what you're doing in songwriting? For sure. It's a great question. Yeah. I think for me, it goes back to like putting God in his rightful place as the creator. Yeah. And then me in my rightful place as creation, praying, Lord, like I decrease and you increase. Yeah. And then I think that like because of course it's easy to be prideful. I mean, look at Satan. Like that's what got him knocked out of heaven. Right. And so I think like, just like when we feel pride creeping in, I think we recognize it, and I think we return like the glory that does not at all belong to us right back to the Lord. And so I think if we're in the like, if we're honest, like have to be in the cycle of like recognizing, repenting, and returning. Oh, yeah. Like, you know, so like recognizing that like, ooh, God, like this is a little bit of pride, like repenting like for that pride, and then returning the glory right back to where it belongs. That's so good. And so I feel like we don't talk about the repenting part enough, you know? That's so good. So when you guys are digging in, you know, Rock City worship team, what's kind of like your first step when you're like, hey, I want to write a song? What's the first step? Yeah. So usually we're in a room. I'll try to set the stage for you. In a room, depends, I don't know, however many people, 3 to 6. But we'll start with prayer. Sometimes we'll like just worship a little bit. But like, I feel like the questions we ask are like, what, like, does the Lord want to say? And like, Lord, like, what have you been saying? And because we like first are writing songs like for our body, like, like, Lord, what are you saying to our people? What do you want to say to our people? And so I think like, this is what I think. Tell us what you think. That's what we're here for. This is your show. This is your show. Oh my gosh. I think it's so not only dangerous, but stupid to not invite like the creator of the universe into those moments. Like we get to serve the greatest
author, the greatest artist, the greatest creator, the greatest composer, we would be foolish to not invite him into that when he's the professional.
That's right.
Like, and so I think like just inviting him into those spaces and asking him like, Lord, what do you want to say? Like, Lord, give us melodies. Like, Lord, give us words.
Yeah.
And so I think like humbling ourselves in that way, and like asking the Lord, what do you want to do? Like, not our will be done, but your will be done.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
I think as creatives, like I would identify as a creative. I definitely think you're a creative.
Yeah.
It can be really hard to separate, like, this is my idea. This is my, you know, I don't know. There's such ownership over a creative process, over a creative like development project, anything like that, to like really release that pride, like you said, and recognize actually there is like nothing original that I have to offer before God. Like there's nothing original, and that's not saying that we're not gifted with like talents and like abilities and things like that, but like I like to think voices like yours are just gonna be like abundant in heaven. You know what I mean? I hope. Like, I hope so.
Right.
But yeah, there's nothing original before God. So how do you guys, before you go out to perform, or even for yourself personally, I don't even like to call it performance because really you're just facilitating the Holy Spirit to move.
Right.
But for lack of a better term, before you go out to lead worship, how are you preparing your heart to allow like the Holy Spirit room to move?
Absolutely. Our team in our church, like, I feel like we often say, like, you can't lead anyone anywhere you haven't been. And so, like, worship and just preparing for worship, like, I should not be binging the Bible, like, Sunday morning before I, like, go lead worship. Like, I should not be like, Lord, fill me up, like, only on Sunday mornings. Like, that should be, like, it, like, worshiping should be an overflow. Like, leading worship should be an overflow of what your life is like. On the day-to-day basis. And that's not to say like we don't go through stuff, you know, because we do. But I think like making sure I'm staying like in my word, making sure that I'm praying, making sure that I'm worshiping on my own time. Like, what a shame it would be if the only time I like worship God was on a platform. That's not worship at all. Like then that's when you get into the performance. Like that's when it's a performance. And so I think like literally just staying ready. There's like a saying that says like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Yeah. And so, and also like, it's going to be really hard to fake. Like, I feel like you can only fake true worship, or it's not even true. You can only fake it for so long. Like, until like either the Lord exposes you or like people are like, you're fake. Yeah. And who wants that?
So true. So if you only eat on Sundays, you know, you're starving the rest of the week.
Exactly.
And that it's not sustainable
at all.
So that's really good.
Yeah.
I know for our team, because I'm also on the worship team at our church.
And you have a great voice, Addie.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. Guys, that's just feel like I just got complimented by like Whitney Houston.
Bye.
Anyway, we have this whole like kind of like heart checklist, and one of the things we say is that we get to do this, and that the platform is a gift that I'll never take for granted.
Same.
And I saw this post. I really wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. I'm going to say it, pretend like it's mine, but it's not mine. But they said, like, remember that a microphone is still the equivalent of a mop in the kingdom. Like,
period.
You can swap them anyway, and, like, God sees it all the same. So I just want to encourage anyone who's listening who thinks that they don't have, like, these amazing gifts or talents. Maybe you look at people and are like, oh, I wish I could sing like her. I wish I could, like, speak like him. Or I wish I could, like, pray like her. Like, God has something amazing that he wants to use you for. And actually, I just want to share this really quick because you're here and we should. But God actually used Tenesha in a really, like, huge way in my testimony. And so I kind of want to hear it from your perspective. Like, when you first met me, like, what were you thinking?
This is how you want to start the story?
Yeah, sure. I just want to see your perspective first.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what do you remember when I came into your life? Or, like, how did this happen for you? And then I'll kind of
That is so funny. What a way to start a story. I'm trying to think. First of all, I don't remember how long ago it was.
It's so long. Like years.
Yeah, literally.
I think it was like 2020 or 2021.
Addie, no, I don't think we should do the story like this.
Okay, I'll start it out. So I remember I was interested in, like, this is when I was first diving into my faith, and I was interested in getting on a worship team just because I had gone to school for music, like, love music. Yeah. But I want to make this episode about me. This is a fun little added part. And I remember I met Tenesha when I auditioned for the worship team. And she just like, I remember her and one other person like sat me down and just lovingly was like, sis, like we just see so much more for you, and how I was living my life, and like, but it was the most like wonderful thing ever that someone did for me. Like, I don't feel like you guys were like calling me out for every which thing. You were just like, no, like you're so much more. Like God has so much more for you in mind. But like, what was that like for your lens, having to like have that heart to heart with me?
Absolutely.
What was that like for you?
I think first of all, one, those conversations are like always hard. But I think that they're worth it and that they're necessary.
Yeah.
But with Jordan, she won't care.
Call her by name. Actually,
Jordan,
let's bring her in here right now.
Literally, Jordan, come out, girl. But Jordan, she has so much just like wisdom and grace in dealing, in having those conversations. And I feel like she does it so graciously. And so just like getting to serve alongside her, like, wow, like we have those conversations, and just watching her have those conversations. But yeah, so had the conversation with you and with Jordan, and I remember thinking like, this girl is gonna like hate us. Like she is going to hate
Look at us now.
Yeah, literally, look at God.
That's so funny.
And so I think like, but what was so funny to me is that like we didn't even like, you just told us like, thanks guys for having that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, was that last year?
I think last year.
And so I think like, cause of course I'm like, dang, she still hates us.
So you went on this like cliffhanger for like years.
Yeah, literally I was like, dang,
so much happened in that
girl. Seriously. But I think like it just shows like, one, like we have to be obedient like as followers of Christ. And then also I think that there's a way you have those conversations. And I'm not saying that I have always done it perfectly, but I think like if we're not operating in grace and in truth, I think about the scripture that says that we have to be as gentle as doves, but wise as serpents. Like if we're not operating in grace and truth, our pastor, he once said, and I don't even know if he is the one who said this, but I'm going to give him credit for the day. But it's like grace without truth is meaningless. And truth without grace is just mean. And so I think like just asking the Lord, like, hey, would you help me to have this conversation? Would you like give me grace and truth? Like, and also on the other end of it, it's just like, would you help the person like receive it as well? And so, and then also like, I think the thing is too, is like, we can even get prideful in those conversations when in reality, like the Lord is the one who gives the increase. Like one plants, one waters. Like, but it's the Lord who gives the increase. And so I think just like, Lord, you give the increase. Like, Lord, I'm being obedient to what you want like to say. So yeah, girl.
I think even that, like what you just said, like ties into this so well, because even that is an act of worship. Like literally surrendering your thoughts, your initiative, your agenda to God, and being like, Lord, let me like be your mouthpiece. Let your words flow through me. It's not a song necessarily in that aspect, but he is putting the words in you to then recite. And I really felt that from you guys that day. So kind of just to round out the story before we hop into like the Hebrew words. So basically what happened was Tenesha and Jordan just sat me down and had this wonderful like conversation, and I changed my life after that. Like it took some time, but I was definitely not living for the Lord at the time, like just not. And this was when I was first coming to the faith. But it's those conversations that we like lovingly have and address one another as the church that like makes us the church. And so it's just crazy because had that all not happened, I probably wouldn't be in ministry today. Like we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, like reconnecting on this podcast. So it's just really cool.
It's so cool. Look at God. Look what he did.
Look at God go. Cool. Well, we're going to carry on with kind of the worship theme here and talk about God and just like who he is and what he says about worship in his word, because I recently learned this concept and I thought it was so cool, but this is like the application, kind of like the teaching piece per se, is I learned that God actually invites us to worship him in like 7 ways. And there are, some people say there's 9, some people say there's 5, some people say there's 7, but like these are just the 7 that really spoke and stuck with me. And so I'll kick us off with the first one.
Amazing.
If that's okay. But the first one is Hâlal, and also just give grace, guys, forgiveness and grace, because we're probably going to say these wrong. But the first one is Hâlal, and it means to celebrate, to boast, to rave, and it's actually where the word hallelujah comes from, Hâlal, and it's to express praise for God through like a physical motion or to like make a fool of oneself. And I really think too often, like in westernized Christian culture, we're afraid to like make a fool of ourselves and worship to God. And I remember when I went on a mission trip in Kenya, Africa, like those ladies got down. Yeah. Like we formed a conga line through the church. Like they were like bebopping around. I was like, these are my people. Like I belong here. And it was amazing. But they weren't afraid to make a fool of themselves. Whereas westernized church, I feel like if you were to do that in today's like modern day American church, it would be seen as a distraction. Like it would be seen as outlandish. But then there's David, you know, who danced his clothes off because he was so like aggressively dancing for God.
Exactly. And I think
what's your take on that?
Also, I love it. First of all, act a fool for the Lord.
That's right.
But isn't there? I literally could be totally wrong. Isn't there a story in the Bible where someone was like filled with the Spirit, but they thought like because of the way that they were acting, they were drunk?
Oh yeah, literally drunk in the Spirit.
Yes,
yeah, that's where that comes from.
Literally,
I'm drunk in the Spirit.
You know, so I love it.
Yeah, that's good. You want to do the next one?
Girl, you set me up. How would you pronounce that?
I think it's pronounced Tehillâh or Tehillâh.
All right, great.
But I could be wrong.
Amazing.
We're going to put the words on the screen so you can just read it. But
you know, okay, great.
Talk us through that one.
Amazing. All right, it says, the song we sing, to sing a song, derived from the word halal and means the singing of halals. And then Psalm 22:3 says, yet thou art holy, O thou who art enthroned upon the praises of Israel.
That's good. And I like how that psalm used the word enthroned because I felt like you used that word a lot. Just like, this literally means to sing praises to the one who is enthroned, like the one who is worthy. Yeah. And the word praises in that psalm is that Tehillâh or however you say it. Yeah. In that psalm, and I just love that the first one is like to vigorously dance to like have this outward expression, but this one is actually like the physical song we sing. Yes.
Is this the same psalm? Sometimes I can't tell with translations that says that no, it might not be a psalm, but he inhabits the praises of his people. Yeah. Maybe that's in Isaiah.
I think it might be in Isaiah, but that is such a good one.
Yeah, and like just even the word like enthroned and then the word like inhabit, like he lives, like that's where he dwells, like is in the praises of his people. Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I've definitely like, I just feel it so strongly for my personal self in like corporate, and if that word's weird for you, it just means like in collective church on a Sunday. Like I feel that so strongly, like there's like a haze of the Lord, like his Spirit, his presence like upon us. But do you feel that too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's good. The next one is Yadah. And I love this word. Yadah is a verb meaning the extended hand or to throw out the hand. So you see a lot of people in like the non-denominational church space like raise their hands in worship. And this is literally that. This is when you just like raise your hands up to God, extend it to him. And we see this in Psalm 63:1. It says, so I will bless thee as long as I live. I will, Yadah, lift up my hands in thy name. I don't know if you kind of grew up with your dad as a pastor, but do you remember like the first time you raised your hand in church?
I do.
Like, extend in praise. What was that like for you?
It was not in church.
Really?
Like, yeah, I actually like, it was so, the church, it was, I'm trying to think. So I went to my dad's church and it was very expressive, but then we went to another church and it was very not. So I think I was very confused. Yeah. Like as a child, like the morning, because my dad's services were like in the evening. And then we went to a morning church. And so it was just like kind of night and day of like, whoa, what is happening? And so at one, like, I feel like I was confused on both. Why aren't these people raising their hands? And why are these people raising their hands? Yeah. And I was at, I think it was Billy Graham's camp. It was like the Cove. Whoa. When I was a teenager, like in North Carolina, we were like with mountains and with like ocean. I remember we were like singing, and I remember I just like, did the TV thing. But that is when I was like, oh, like this is why. Wow. Like this is why like people lift their hands. And so, yeah.
I still remember the first time I did too. That's so cool, by the way. You went to Billy Graham. Like, that's insane. Like, once in a lifetime opportunity.
You know.
Casual. I still remember the first time that I also did. I grew up Catholic, so, like, if you rose your hand in church, people would think you just had a question.
Right.
Like,
right.
people would have been like, yes.
Right.
But the first time I rose my hand, I remember it was like this crazy moment of surrender for me because I was breaking through everything that I had ever been taught.
Yeah.
And I felt like physical chains come off of me as I like extended my hand towards God and just like full surrender and like submission to knowing that He was like reaching back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was a crazy moment for me. But I just love this word Yadah and how there's an actual like Hebrew word for that feeling, for that expression.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
All right, take us through the next one. I
right.
think this one's easy to say.
Is it?
I think so.
What is it?
I think it's Towdah.
All right, great.
Towdah.
Towdah. To give worship used for thanking God for things not yet received, as well as things already at hand. And in Psalm 50:14, it says, offer unto God praise.
Towdah.
Towdah. And pay thy vows unto the Most High.
It's so good.
So good.
Oh, this one's like actually really, I was just like reading it and understanding it as we were reading it, but this is like when you worship, oh, this is so good. It's like worshiping through pain, worshiping through, because it says thanking God for things not yet received as well as things already in hand. Maybe you've been through this, but there have definitely been moments where I'm just like praising God for the awareness of like my salvation and like just Him bringing me to the awareness of Him, but I'm still worshiping Him even though there's like deep wounding prayers that I still have yet to see answered.
Absolutely.
I just love how there's like actually a word for that.
Yeah, there's a gospel song and it's called like Praise Him in Advance.
Yeah.
And literally the whole song they just talk about like praising God.
Yeah.
Like in advance. Like we don't see it yet, but like we can still praise God for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes me think of that song too, like I've seen cancer disappear. What's that song?
No, Too Good to Not Believe.
Too Good to Not Believe.
Yeah, shout out Brandon Lake.
Yeah, that's right. Did you go to his concert, by the way?
No.
Oh, it was just in town.
I seen him in concert with
So
Mav
good.
like years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
It was Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham.
Nice.
It's like best duo.
I
Anyways,
love that. So you went.
I did go.
I love that. Where was it at?
It was at Schottenstein.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, so
Fun.
it was a great time.
I love
Also,
that.
I just feel like worshiping with, I think they said there were like, I'm probably so wrong, 10,000 people there?
Sounds right to me.
Okay, yeah, we'll just go with that. I think there were like 10,000 people there, but just seeing like that many people worshiping, it's just amazing.
And I think too, like when you go to concerts that are like worship concerts, that sounds crazy, but it is what it is. Like those people chose to be there. Like even at church sometimes I feel like people get drugged to church. Yeah. Like, you know, but I think to be in a room of willing worshipers is powerful.
Yep. So. Yeah, because God says He wants worshipers.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
The next one is Shabach.
Yes.
And I hope I'm saying that right. You kind of have to do the gross, like, like throat
You're doing
sound.
great.
Thanks. Shabach, and it means to address in a loud tone or to commend or praise loudly. I love this one because I feel like when we're like, in church, or like, I don't know, we're like, come on, you know, things like that. It can be like, you know, for someone new, they're just kind of looking at you like, okay, was that really necessary? And it's like, that was necessary in my spirit right now. And there's a word for that.
Exactly.
And an example is Psalm 47:1. It says, oh, clap your hands, all peoples, shout, which is that Shabach word, to God with the voice of joy or triumph. I just love that. Like, it's okay to shout for the Lord.
It truly is.
And I think with, like, again, this kind of goes back to Hâlal, Shabach. It's kind of like making a fool of oneself, raising one's voice. Yeah. I think there are appropriate moments of that, but if we're ever doing something with the desire to draw attention to ourselves and not to God, that's where it becomes kind of an issue in worship.
Absolutely.
But God actually invites us to do those things in worship to Him, which I love.
Yeah. It's incredible.
The next one. This one's, I think, easy to say.
All right, great. Is it Zamar?
Zamar. Yeah, you got it.
Period. Sing, play instruments, playing music to express joy in God's presence. And then 1 Chronicles 16:9, it says, sing to Him, sing praises, Zamar, to Him, speak of all His wonders.
Yes. This one just goes out to all the people who say drums can't be in church.
Period. Exactly.
David was a drummer, I'm just saying. Was it David? Yeah.
I just feel like he played all the instruments.
Yeah,
like, I feel like
he played
everyone,
the lyre.
Yeah.
Who played the drum? Wasn't it David?
It might have been. He played the lyre, the lute, the harp.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, jack of all spades. Trades.
That's right.
Yeah.
It literally says that God encourages us to sing, to play instruments, to like bang on drums. And I just think too often we don't look at that as an expression of worship. We look at it as like musical preference, or like, you know, because there's some people who prefer like straight up choral, like maybe more of a liturgical church, like classical church, where they have, you know, like a choir that has no instruments and they're just singing a cappella. And then there's churches like ours that are like really loud, like really production heavy. And I just love how no matter like your worship preference, God actually kind of tells us his.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
And the last one is Barak. And this means, it makes me think of Barack Obama.
Absolutely same. I mean, it sounds the same to me.
Not Obama, but the Hebrew word, Barak. It means to kneel down or to bless. And to bless someone is to like, to submit yourself, to kneel before them. And this means to bow or like give reverence to God and recognition for just his ultimate holiness, his ultimate authority over our lives. And we see this in Psalm 95:6. It says, "Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel, Barak, before the Lord our Maker." I know for me, if I ever kneel in church, it's usually a moment that I'm just like feeling the Spirit really heavy. I don't think it's something that's like super normal for me to do, but there have been moments where I'm like literally just brought to my knees.
Absolutely.
Before God.
Absolutely.
Just in like awesomeness and wonder of what he's done. But have you ever had that moment where you kneel, or like how do you sense out those moments of where it's okay to kneel versus where it might be distracting? Like how do you do that?
That's a really good question. I often feel like the need to bow, but if I feel as if maybe it's not an appropriate time, or if it could be more of a distraction at the time, I still put myself in the position of like bowing, kneeling, where I just kind of like lean down. And so, I feel that often, just the weight of his presence. I remember the first time I spoke in tongues, I remember I was in that same posture, like, but I couldn't lift myself up because I was so like heavy with the weight of like the glory of the Lord. And so, I think I feel that like heaviness often.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But it's like, I know what you're saying because I've experienced it. It's just like the weight of his glory in the best kind of way, not in a burdensome way. But if you've never experienced that before, I think it really starts from a place of like just deep surrender. Like we hear all the time, like, oh, lay it at the foot of the cross. But I think that starts with like, to lay something at the foot of the cross, you have to be at the base of the cross. Like kneeling and surrender and submission. And I just think about that. But for someone who has no idea, because you just said speaking in tongues.
Oops.
No, I love that. I love that. But I feel like we should just talk about that really quick for anyone who doesn't know what that is. Because we've actually never talked about that on the pod just yet.
Edit it out.
I think I just said edit it out. It's a big topic, but could you just share for a brief moment, like, what that is and what that led you to what speaking in tongues is? Basically.
Man, I don't know if I can do that. Hold on, let me think.
Like, pause. I did do one episode on the Holy Spirit where I mentioned it very briefly. But I did mention how there's a lot of, like, different churches that have different perspectives on it. And how no one's preference should ever cloud somebody's operation to, like, just be in full submission to the Lord.
For sure. This is tough because, you know, she's not a theologian. But, I mean, speaking in tongues is a spiritual gift. And
just say, like, what it is for you.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's not, like, super, like, theological, just what is it for you?
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's just speaking in, like, the prayer language that the Lord has given me. It's just, like, for him. There's a Bible verse and it talks about, like, unless there's an interpreter, like, you have no business, like, just speaking in tongues, like, in a group of people, because it won't benefit them because they don't know what you're saying.
Right.
And no one can interpret it. So I really, like, in the car or like while I'm at home, like doing dishes or like off mic at church, which was this occasion when I first got the gift. But so I think it's just like, for me, even when I'm feeling like dry, like spiritually dry, I'm like, all right, let me just like pray like in my spiritual language and like let the Lord fill me up. Yeah. That's really, I think, like the biggest use for me is like, it just like, I feel like the Lord just fills me up a little more, you know?
I think I've experienced, so I actually have spoken tongues before too. Yeah. It's not super frequent for me, but we kind of talked about how, like, I told you, I feel that like haze of the Lord's presence in worship. Yeah. And I've always sung mine.
Yeah, I love that.
Mine are always sung. Don't know why.
That's
and
so
usually,
cute.
Again, it's that's so cute. That's so cute. Normally mine are like off mic, like just between me and God. Right. It doesn't need to be over the whole congregation because just as you said, it won't be understood. Right. And that's the Spirit like manifesting in me, like for me and God. And so, I just want to touch on that in case anyone was listening and they're not sure what it is. And honestly, I'll probably do a whole topic on it later because it's a whole thing.
It is.
But it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the biggest like mysteries of the world to me.
Absolutely.
Today, like it's so confusing, but it's so like exciting and mysterious.
Absolutely.
But sometimes, it is amazing.
If I can...
She said.
Okay, sometimes... Okay, this is going to sound crazy. Sometimes I literally want to, I know this is never going to work. I've tried it. But to like, you know, push Siri and then like start speaking in tongues to see, like, girl, like, is this a language?
Like Google Translate.
You know what I mean? Like, help me. What am I saying? Anyways. So sometimes I pray for the gift of interpretation because Siri is not doing it for me.
I'm praying for that for Greek so that I can pronounce these well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now that would be a miracle. Dude, you're just the best. You're a light.
As are you.
You have so much wisdom to share, and I'm just so grateful that you took the time to come and just... I feel like it is such a, like... I know this is going to sound really cheesy, but I'm so, like, honored to speak with you about worship because in the same way that you're talking about your parents' authentic faith, like, I've always seen that in you.
Thank you.
From the time of me, like, growing in my faith, like, first accepting Jesus, like, you've been a part of the whole thing, which is kind of funny. Yeah. And even if we haven't, like, talked every week, like, you've still been so influential in my journey. Yeah. So it's just been amazing to, like, witness and in ways that you probably don't realize, like, learn and grow in worship from you. Yeah. And so that's just been really cool. And I hope other people who are listening took that away, too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me, girl.
Yeah, of course. Could you share with everybody where they can find you if they want to look up some of your worship or, like, look up Rock City even?
Absolutely. Rock City Worship on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. And then if you want to hang out with me, Tenesha Session on Instagram. I have a good time on there. And then I'm trying to think, that's pretty much it, right?
Dude, can I say something really funny?
Please.
So it took me the longest time to know, this is so embarrassing. I actually shouldn't be telling you. It took me the longest time to realize Session is like your last name.
Yeah.
I thought you were just saying this is a session of Tenesha for you. Like it's a play on words, like music session. Like
I'm married into it, but I like use it.
It's
like,
so good
to my benefit all the time.
That like could be your podcast name.
Okay, I think
Tenesha Session.
I think it's going to be something like that. That's cute.
Look for her upcoming podcast, Tenesha Session.
Wow, exactly.
And you should also share about your curating thing because it's so cool.
Oh, I love it. I have a like online thrift shop. It's called Zamar Thrift. And Zamar just means like joy, like fullness of joy. But yeah, I get to curate boxes for people. They'll fill out a Pinterest board with all of the things that they like, and then I go to thrift stores and I find it for them because I feel like people have a hard time finding things they like and want at thrift stores.
It's so true, and I'm definitely gonna hit you up about putting together like a curated box of worship fits for me because your outfits are always fly.
Thank you, girl.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Really appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Christ in Me with Addie, and I will see you next time.
That's amazing.
Okay, there were some weird hiccups where I just was like fangirling and definitely messed up, but
Girl, same. So do your editing.